Hi, this is Dr. Michael Rothman, and in today's video, I want to talk to you about the effects of living in a water-damaged building, a moldy building, if you have a genetic predisposition. Now, statistically, a little less than 1/4 of people, more specifically about 24% of people, actually have a genetic predisposition to having an adverse reaction to living in a water-damaged building. And the reaction that they can have from living in these types of conditions can be actually life-changing and can destroy your life. So how does this work? Well, let's talk about your immune system to start with. We actually have two parts of our immune system. We have a very, very ancient part called the innate immune system. And this is ancient, meaning it's been basically since the first creatures walked on this planet, even before they were walking, just the first protozoa, the most primitive organisms, have a system of fighting off threatening organisms. And that system actually just basically burns stuff up. The system says, oh my God, there's something here we don't like. Let's just burn it up. Again, this is very primitive. And this system works in everybody. We also have a more advanced system in our body. It's called the adaptive immune system. This is where we adapt and we actually make antibodies that are very specific against very specific organisms. So now in the genetically predisposed person, they have almost like a blind spot where they cannot see the organism. They never make the antibodies. So what happens is their innate system starts burning up stuff and burning up stuff. And normally, while that stuff's being burnt up, the adaptive system is now making antibodies. The antibodies come in, they destroy the foreign invader, and then the system is cleared out and you're fine. But in those genetically predisposed people, they never recognize this as a threat. The innate system keeps burning up the stuff, burning up the stuff. The antibodies are never made. So what is the consequence of that? Well, you start burning up stuff. You start burning up your body. This causes a terrible inflammatory response. And this inflammatory response will make you feel like you have the flu. You may have trouble thinking straight, body aches, terrible fatigue. There may be gastrointestinal symptoms. There may be headaches. There may be joint pains. There may be problems with temperature fluctuations, all sorts of weird symptoms. This is just the beginning. And then over time, these inflammatory chemicals hit a part of your brain known as your hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus will lose control. And then your body has trouble maintaining what's called homeostasis. In other words, your body can no longer maintain internal balance. So on top of having these flu-like symptoms, now you start to have all sorts of dysfunction when it comes to your homeostatic controls. The situation goes from bad to worse. And these people will go from one doctor to the next. They may be diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple chemical sensitivities, irritable bowel syndrome, paroxysmal orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, all of these different weird things, and they may have all of them. And they'll be treated with a drug for this symptom and a drug for that symptom. But the problem is that if you don't fix what's wrong, you'll never get better. So what should you do if you're living in a moldy building, if you have the genetic predisposition? The single most important thing is you need to find out if this is the problem, and you need to get away from the mold. If you do have the bad genes and you are being exposed, nothing else will work. And it may not take a whole lot of mold. Once your genes have been activated, here's another really important piece of the puzzle too. You may think, well, I've had these genes my whole life, Doc. How come all of a sudden mold is bothering me? Well, there's a certain threshold of exposure that you need in order to start manifesting these symptoms. So in other words, you may have gone through your whole life, never knew that you had these moldy genes. And then you've been exposed to mold or the products of a water-damaged building for too long. And it could take several months, or even a year and a half for this to occur. But then all of a sudden those genes wake up and they start to cause the inflammatory response. So the treatment plan for this, number one, is to identify, are you a case of what we would call chronic inflammatory response syndrome? If you are a case, you need to have your environment checked very, very carefully by someone with expertise. And then a remediation plan must be put in place. In other words, eliminating the mold from your environment. That will help many, many people. However, in some people that will not work. It won't be enough, I should say. And then you would need to take the next step. And the next step is to actually ingest a medication that sucks the bile out of your body. Now, how does this work? Well, because your body's trying to get rid of these toxins, and it will concentrate these biotoxins in your bile, and then you'll try to actually poop this out. But what happens is the bile is recycled through your body. So you can take these things called bile resin binders, which bind the bile, and then every time you go number 2, you actually are excreting biotoxins. So the drugs that are used for this are actually old drugs that used to be used for high cholesterol. One is called cholestyramine, and one is called Welchol. They're very rarely used for cholesterol anymore because of the statin drugs have become very popular. This will fix many people. So if you can suck those, first of all, remove from the exposure. Number 2, suck the biotoxins out of the body. Again, a lot of people will have reached resolution of their symptoms at that point. But then there's other things as well. You can actually grow resistant organisms within your sinuses that need to be identified and eradicated. And if you do that, another certain percentage of people will improve. There will be some people that even if they've eliminated themselves from the mold, they've gotten the toxins out of their system, they've removed the toxins from their sinuses, the resistant organisms from their sinuses, their hypothalamic control, their ability to maintain homeostasis in their body is so impaired, they would need to go to the next set of steps, which is to try to repair the autonomic nervous system, the hormonal system, the immune system. This becomes much more complicated, and there's a whole series of different steps that can be done. And it can be done, and it can be done successfully. It's not easy. It requires a lot of time and effort, but if you do want to improve your life, you really need to do this. Now, I've been training with Dr. Ritchie Shoemaker. Dr. Shoemaker is the world's expert on water damage building and biotoxin illness. He has made many, many discoveries. In fact, everything that I've just talked to you about in this video was pretty much Dr. Shoemaker was the force behind this. And Dr. Shoemaker retired a few years ago, and he's training a new generation of doctors to take his place. I'm the latest doctor to have been certified in the surviving mold protocol, and I'm very happy to have achieved that recognition. So if you are suffering from some unexplained illness and you suspect that you may be exposed to mold, a water damage building, biotoxins, and whatnot, please give my office a call. Check out my website. The website is www.mdwellnessmd.com. You can also reach me on my phone, 732-268-7663. You do not have to give up. Your life is not hopeless. Just because you've seen 20 doctors doesn't mean that, that I'm not going to help you. So I hope this is helpful to you. Good luck to you. Have a great day.